Well, another year-ender pleasant surprise coming from the Department of Disinvestment. We're talking about the latest development in IDBI Bank disinvestment. Joining me talking to us on Business Today Television is Secretary Dipam, Mr.Tuhin Kanta Pandey. Thank you, sir, for joining us in this conversation. First things first, you've got your first set of bids. Now it is a process and a one-of-its-kind process that you've been involved in. What has the response been like in numbers?
Well, there's been good response, that much I can say. We don't reveal the numbers and the names.
You've said multiple responses, so we're assuming that it's been a great number, especially with the fact that you've put in a lot of efforts in this transaction because it's been the first banking as such transaction for the department. Now, so what is the road ahead when you're talking about this? What happens next now that you've got your first set of bids? When do you proceed with the financial bids?
Now the process is basically to go for a due diligence by the bidders. First of all, I think they will have to pass the fit and proper test of the RBI, which was again a unique issue in this transaction. Following which they will be taken to the virtual data room on non-disclosure undertaking, and they would be able to see a lot of data and information about the company in question, about its various accounts and other detailed information which may not be right now in public domain, and also the draft share purchase agreements and the comments and queries back and forth go for that. And after that is done, then the RFP is issued for a financial bid.
Great. So how long do you think the due diligence process could take place?
It depends upon the transaction. It's not really a straight-jacketed thing that you can do it in this. Depends, but in a banking transaction like this, we feel that at least 3 to 4 months is a minimum. But there might be a request for a little bit more time.
Okay, which means that when we start with the next financial year, we are almost in the midway of the process to launch the financial bids. So if I understand this right, that the whole process could be completed by end of Q2 of the next financial year?
Well, we hope, yes, that at least the financial bids we will have by that time.
Okay. So typically, the regulator gives 1 year to 3 year norms for the 3 year timeline duration for the minimum public shareholding norm. By when do you expect, how much time would you give it to IDBI when it comes to the MPS norms? Because recently you've also announced the exemption.
That will depend. So normally, as you rightly say, that if there's a change of control, but the fact that IDBI is not right now in MPS, it's pretty well behind, and you know the reasons. At one stage, the public float was much higher, but due to the past problems of IDBI Bank, due to NPAs, the mandatory capital infusion had to be undertaken as per the RBI norms, and so therefore the promoters' stake increased actually. So going by the fact that we have the situation now, so we cannot possibly have a very swift return to the MPS thing, and depending upon, I think, requirements, there would be a possibility of a reasonable time for this transition.
Great. And what now, of course, with Dipam and LIC, you're looking to close to sell about 61% stake in this first go. Now, what is the exit plan when it comes to IDBI? Do you want to completely get out of it, or you want to still hold something in it?
No, eventually, yes. I mean, it's a matter of time before both government and LIC exit. But what will be the time, that will, I think, depend upon possibly our interest in terms of, monetization of that value which remains, because we will practically be financial investors going forward after the disinvestment.
Right. Now, it's been one of its kind of banking transaction, and I think Dipam has time and again stressed that such processes take time. What have been the key challenges in the whole process? Because I believe two regulators were involved. A lot of discussions had to be done. A lot of responses were also coming through the roadshows.
Yes, I think, as you know, this is a capital intensive industry, banking, and it's highly regulated. So, and you have peculiar laws and regulations around banking in India. For example, we have under the Banking Regulation Act the voting shares, voting irrespective of the holding.
Right.
Even the voting is capped at 26%. That means available voting for the promoters is capped at 26%. We do have norms around who all can actually undertake banking and get a license. Because, for example, corporates, they are not allowed. Even corporate NBFCs not allowed. So you have to really look at it. What are the possibilities, and state it upfront, and then sort of saying that, well, should we just go for mandatory consortium, which may not be possible.
Possible.
So in that case, and we are doing it a comparative bidding process. So it's not a question of, you pick up one or two and then, sort of structure a deal around it. We have to open up the comparative bidding process to as many players as possible. So there was also an issue of what could be the right structure size, deal size, which is reasonable from the point of view of the size of the, in fact, the kind of check they have to write on, and also the need for infusion of capital also in future when they take over, because the banking will require always more and more capital.
Right.
In case you expand, you need to have a corresponding capital
Right.
in terms of a certain ratio as a capital adequacy,
Right.
as per the banking norms.
Right. Now we're looking at IDBI, of course, the coming year, in the next financial year. I'm sure you have a set of pipeline that you're looking at. Other key companies we're talking about is Concor, Shipping Corporation of India, BEMIL. What is the kind of update on them? Are they also, of course, going to be the priority on the agenda?
They're all in priority. Any transaction which has been approved by the cabinet as in principle, then that we have to structure the process and go through the bidding process and try and complete it. BEML and shipping are in different stages. They're relatively advanced stages. Their peculiarity for them has been the demerger, where a lot of assets, especially when they were not really core to the company's operation, needed to be separated out. And that was in a listed company. The best way was to demerge it. And the demerger process itself is under the company's law, has to be carried out. And Ministry of Corporate Affairs had to be approached, and they have gone through the process as per the law. And it's in different stages. In case of BEML, for example, the demerger order has been out, and now the allocation and listing is in process. In case of SCI, we are waiting for
the
the demerger order, and following which, there will be clarity for the bidders who are already in advanced stages looking at it, for us to, give them an RFP for and invite the financial bid. In case of Concor, of course, as you know, that there was an issue of land licensing policy as to the clarity on the kind of leases which will remain going
Right.
for after post disinvestment, including, for example, what kind of tenure would be available, what will happen to the existing land parcels, what will be the terms and conditions of, lease rents, which that will be, applicable.
Right.
That was railways broadened the scope of their policy to include, various other things under PM Gati Shakti, and that was a time, I think, was taken by railways to reorganize their policy, which was done, and it came in October.
Okay.
And when it came in October, thereafter we are now on to the job of framing the AOI and hopefully we would be issuing the EUI soon.
Right. So there's a lot on your plate right now, but is there a possibility of new PSUs being added to the pipeline in the coming year for disinvestment?
Well, we have a new PSC policy, and that PSC policy not only says that how it will be going forward, the disinvestment will be done, and what will be done for the strategic sector, what will be done for the non-strategic sector. It also defines that this disinvestment itself is a calibrated process, and you have to do it as per the timing. Timing of any disinvestment transaction will contingent upon several factors, and a calibrated approach has been what the policy has narrated there.
But the department is identifying the assets as per the PSC policy.
I mean, that's a process which is ongoing process, but we have to see what we can chew and how much we can do and what are the possibilities, and you have to keep on thinking about the way to do that. As you know, the disinvestment is not a one-way process.
Right.
It is a two-way process in which we need to have bidders and interest equally. Otherwise, we may come out with an EOI and not get a response. I mean, that's neither here nor there.
Nor there, right. So you did mention about Shipping Corporation of India, and that reminds me that recently Ministry of Corporate Affairs did a hearing. In fact, just the last week, and a decision is expected on, of course, their decision is expected on the demerger matter. Have you heard something about that? When is the update expected?
No, I think, I believe they have completed the hearings, and we await the order.
Right. So one last question before we end this interview, and I'm not addressing the elephant in the room, which is the target that we all always talk about, but I'm trying to put more focus on the fact that in the last few years, we've seen that the dividend receipts have done much better and well when compared to the disinvestment receipts. I'd like your comment on this, that how is it going on the dividend side, and further going, are you going to put more focus on that aspect?
I think that's a good question, because I think obviously I think always Dipam, for example, we have two budget lines in terms of receipts. One is the non-tax revenue, which is the dividend, and another is the miscellaneous capital receipts, which is the disinvestment receipts. Actually, and to some extent, they are contra. If you disinvest the shares, you have less possibility of dividend in future. Because basically disinvestment is, if you have a dividend income model, basically it's a capitalized value. If you capitalize the dividends over a period of time, that's the upfront value that you receive of the shares. So basically if we disinvest the shares, future dividend income is reduced. Money is fungible. Government requires the money both ways. So the narrative must be also that we should look at it together. How much are we doing? Because in some ways, in case we are not able to proceed with, because of market factors and others, that disinvestment, but at least we, in many cases, our government companies, government PSUs are fairly dividend-paying companies, and to that extent they are profitable, to that extent they give dividend, to the extent they can also carry on capex from the resources. Well, then in that case, it's equally, sort of important. So we should take a balanced view in terms of, where the receipts are coming from.
Great. Thank you very much, sir, for talking to us on Business Today Television, and wish you luck with all the next transactions that you've prioritized on your agenda.
Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.